How about some flexible frights for your Halloween night? Here's your spooky spot on the Noble Collection Toys Universal Monsters Bendyfigs. Each of the Bendyfig Universal Monsters are officially licensed by Universal Studios. The figures stand approximately 7.5 inches tall and comes included with the Universal Monsters display stand. Now, before we get a closer look at some Universal Monster Bendy... Wait, is somebody missing a child right now? I can't help but notice that next to the Wolfman, there's a small toddler standing here. Who's not keeping their kid properly under wraps? No, actually, the reasoning why you may notice a small little mummy here is not only did the folks over at Noble Collection Toys provide all of the Universal Monsters that we're about to have a look at, the Phantom of the Opera, the Wolfman, and the Invisible Man, but they also took the time and kindly provided a Bendyfig Mini. That would explain the small little child that's standing right next to the Wolfman. I don't know if I would be standing that close to the Wolfman. So we're actually going to be having a look at, not instead of 3 Bendyfigs, but now instead 4. And of course, the mini one is going to be a smaller version that also comes available in all the other Universal Monsters we've had a look at, just on a smaller scale. These ones actually don't also come included with display stands either. I'm going to grab a tape measure. And first what we're going to do is measure off the Wolfman. There are obviously, as you can see, different sizes here. Wolfman, for example, is 5.5 inches in height, and that works out to be a figure that's roughly about 14 centimeters tall. In the way, though, of Phantom of the Opera, by the way, I'm not actually counting the display stand while I'm measuring the heights of these figures. The Phantom of the Opera and Invisible Man are going to be roughly the same in size. They're about 6.5 inches in height, or about 16 centimeters tall. And then the tiny little tot, the little mummy kid here, it's not really a mummy kid. He actually, without a display stand, the figure is only about 4.5 inches in height. So he's going to be a little bit smaller than the rest that we're about to have a look at. And that works out to be a figure that's about 10 centimeters tall. This is actually the second series of Universal Monster Bendyfigs we've had a look at, already having a look at the earlier ones. Just moving the mummy out of the way. He is a little bit on this more smaller side. Let's just move back the Invisible Man just a little bit, bringing in Dracula. Moving back just again the Phantom of the Opera. We're also going to bring in the Bride of Frankenstein. Here's her hubby, Frankenstein's monster. And again, sorry, I keep moving this tiny mummy around. Here's also what they look like with the creature from the Black Lagoon. All of them are going to be sharing the same type of display stand. What, though, is different is the font and, of course, the name of the character featured on the front of it. Yes, in a case like this, all the Universal Monsters are sharing the same type of display stand. I'm going to just remove the one that actually is attached to Wolfie for right now. I don't know if he's actually going to, I may have to give him just a bit of a wolf nap. The stands themselves are all hard black plastic, as you can see right at the top there. You've got Universal Monsters printed nicely in white, and down below that you've got the Wolfman. Maybe not so much white as it is a silver. 2 peg holes on the either side of course, the middle section there. That's going to attach to the underside of Wolfman's feet. And it gives you sort of a film reel style. So on the side, of course, you've got the open slots here that would reel itself. These also kind of look like, and just flip these around for 1 second. On the back, of course, you got Bendyfigs, Noble Collection Toys, made in China. I don't know why as well. Not only does it look like a film reel, which is, of course, the intended reasoning for why it's sculpted like this, but it kind of looks also like one of those old discs for a PC that you would maybe find around in the mid-'80s to early 90s. Nobody probably would even recognize these by now, but they're about the same size, I would expect, as one of those earlier discs. Can you put them into your PC? Now everything is like CD-ROM or flash drive. Anyways, you can take any one of the figures, of course, dedicated for those stands, and you can see on the underside, for example, of Wolfman's feet, there's 2 holes, and those easily attach onto those pegs. You don't have to necessarily do that with the sound effects. The one that doesn't, of course, come included with a stand is the tiny little mummy, which I guess we could technically look at first. This is now part of their Bendyfigs minis line. And I think right now all they've got is the mummy, and then they've got like the first wave, which is like the Bride of Frankenstein. Actually, you know what? In fact, I have the card right here. It's the Wolfman. They have Frankenstein's monster, the mummy, Wolfman, and Creature from the Black Lagoon, actually technically pulling from both Series 1 and Series 2. Again, they took the time to send over the mummy that we could have a look at. Does not include a display stand, and actually doesn't even come included with peg holes in the undersides of his smelly, wrapped up feet either. Head sculpt on this one is really good. In fact, I've really been happy with all of these Bendyfigs Universal Monsters. In some of the cases, like, for example, the Phantom of the Opera that we're about to talk about, they're all a little bit more stylized in design. They're not necessarily bearing the likeness of these characters from the Universal films, but they do a dang good job of actually giving us a creepy-looking Bendyfig. Like, for example, the Mummy, what we've got right here. You can see it's missing what seems like its nose. Little dark pebbles for eyes. A cool little smile on his face, and of course he's got bandages all over his body. I do like the little touch of actually having like a little hole that you can almost see through his body, although it doesn't go obviously all the way around. What you will see for holes, though, is on the backs of their bodies where the wireframe has been fit into the mold. These holes I've mentioned in earlier reviews, those holes are there actually just to guide the molding. When they put the wire in, it holds the wires before, of course, they put the material in to make the molding for these figures. But the detailing on the mummy is actually really good. Again, I like the gray, I like the beige that they put. The bandages are quite very intricately sculpted too. This one, because it's also a mini, seems to bend the easiest of all the figures we're about to have a look at. You can see the little straps of bandages draping down from its arms. It does have, again, wireframes. Basically, anywhere the holes will be will guide you as to what is actually articulated in the figure. Because he's also a little bit smaller, he seems to be able to move his head also, something that you're not going to be able to pull off as well or as successfully when we get to the larger variety. This one actually can even crouch forward. You can have the legs kind of looming or lunging forward, almost as if it's in a walking pose. Obviously, it's not going to hold its weight like this, but a pretty good-looking mini. If you don't like the sizing necessarily of these Bendyfigs that Noble Collection Toys have been doing, maybe you don't even have enough space on your shelf to accommodate figures of this size, then maybe the minis are like the best approach. Again, they're doing the Frankenstein's monster, the Mummy, the Wolfman, and Creature from the Black Lagoon from Series 1. And again, Series 2, they're probably going to fill in all the gaps of all the other figures from, again, that Series 1 and Series 2 that we've looked at so far. So, yeah, there's the Mummy. We're going to move him out of the way. I'm going to maybe look at these in my favorites or least favorite to favorite. And even by saying least favorite doesn't necessarily apply that I don't like the look of the character, but I can already tell you my favorites. Some may have some speculation as to exactly what favorite that may be, but we're going to start with, again, not my least favorite, but I guess in comparison to what I feel is the best figure of what was provided to me, the figure that we're going to be looking at, we're going to be looking at first. Just to sum that all up. Of course, you got the display stand here for the Invisible Man. The display stand is, again, exactly the same as all the others. So we're going to move that to the side. Invisible Man seems to balance the best when it comes to getting these figures to stand. Of course, it helps the best. Also, if you have the arms straight, it stands a little bit better. Little bit better, I say, as the figure's going to be falling over. Okay. The head sculpt on this one, again, you've got the bandages. We just finished looking at a figure that had bandages, but again, you've got the bandages here for the Invisible Man. What I like about this one is that you can actually still be able to make out a nose and a mouth, even though the bandages are wrapped across his face. They've even sculpted a guideline, at least, of where the ears would be. And it looks like they probably would have molded this in that same brown coloring that they would have done here for the smoking jacket. Of course, they would have just then painted the parts for the bandages and, of course, the goggles over top of his eyes as well. That's a fine-looking head sculpt, though, for the Invisible Man. Again, I would only say that this is my third favorite because I kind of like the look of the Phantom of the Opera, and he does have a removable mask. Stay tuned for that. I guess by saying that, you already know my favorite from the three figures we're going to be looking at here. But, Invisible Man does do things nicely. You've got the striped pants there, the alternating colors of the blue and the lighter blue. And again, he's got these big clonking shoes. Now, again, because they have the wire frame built into their back, the more material that they're using for their build means that they're going to be a little bit more limited. So with the Invisible Man, for example, the most you can really pull off when it comes to bendable things on these is actually more the arms. There is some bendability also for the legs, and being, of course, that the jacket that he has is a softer plastic material, you can actually do a decent job of actually bending the legs. And again, because they have the display stand, you bring the display stand back in, you can attach one of the feet onto the pegs, and yeah, you can get him in a little bit more of a walking pose, though he's going to be leaning a little off to the side. Nice looking figure, though. Comparing it, though, to the Phantom of the Opera, I like the Phantom of the Opera just that little bit more. The Phantom of the Opera, like in the film, would have a removable mask. The mask itself, if I can get a little bit closer in there, you can see the mask conceals most of the scarring, although if you look to the side, you can see really how much damage is done to the side of his face. Some cool extra color of red has been added in there as well. Mind you, if you look at the unscathed side, he actually does have some decent paint added there to his eyes, his eyebrows. He doesn't seem the happiest fellow, does he? There's some decent detailing that they've also added to the mask. The mask is plastic, but it is also removable. Really hide behind the couch if you find things like this to be too scary. We're going to go ahead and remove the mask. Woo! And of course, we've got the scarred face of the Phantom of the Opera underneath. It looks very much like the Christopher Nolan Two-Face, doesn't it? Although I think Two-Face would be on this side here. You got the holes, of course, in the insides of his face. There's a phobia, apparently, of people that don't like holes in things, multiple holes. I'm drawing a blank as to what it is right now. I'm sure I'll let you guys know down below in the comment section if somebody already hasn't Google searched that. But if you do have a phobia of things that have multiple holes, this is probably not the best figure to be looking at right now, but it's got some really nice coloring done to the red here. A little bit more sunken in, too, than the other side of his face. You see what I mean, though? Like, I like the Invisible Man, but I think the charm, though, of the Phantom of the Opera is just a little bit better. The mask itself actually does a decent enough job of attaching into his face. What you're actually doing, though, is when you attach it onto his face, there's a little hole also serves to help get that little clip that's on the inside of the mask and helps that attach to the side of his face. So it's not actually just frictioned. I would worry that if it was friction, it would probably fall off a little more frequently. You can tilt the head up, or you can do the blizzard test, and it doesn't seem like the mask is going to be going anywhere. Of course, he does have his display stand. We can go ahead and take him off. He stands okay. He stands actually a little bit worse because he's got the cape on the back that adds a little bit more back heaviness to it. And in this case, he's all molded here in a red plastic. He's red here, at least in the scarf, but the majority of the plastic that they've actually used here is black. We've got a little bit of the vest here done in a more darker gray. But again, I really like this one quite a lot. Again, these ones work a lot better on display stands. I would certainly encourage, if you are picking these figures up for yourself, make use of the display stands. Not only do display stands bring a little extra charm by the fact that they look like film reels, but also, too, it makes the figure stand a lot better. Now, my favorite, as if you already didn't know, picking up the Wolfman, who we already saw had no easy time of actually standing on his own. Again, he's got his display stand. You've got the Wolfman now differently done down below. And, of course, you've got the Universal Monsters done to the top. That doesn't change at all, but the font certainly does down below. I'm going to move that out of the way. Getting a closer look at Wolfman. If you like the more vintage design of the silver screen Wolfman, then this definitely fits the part rather nicely. Very furry looking Wolfman. You got these big Wolfman long ears on the sides, big snarling face here on the front. Coloring on this guy's really good. I think they've done of all the figures of the three that we're looking at here, and again, not counting the mini, I guess really like the mini, just to comparing in size, yeah, the mini is so much smaller. Even counting really the mini, the Wolfman by far is my favorite from this. I mean, just look at like the tears that he's got in the sleeves, for example. Really dirty shirt. He's a very muscular looking Wolfman too. Very broad in the shoulders, very broad in the forearms, and very broad also in the legs. This guy works out. But he has just a classic look to him. Doesn't look really as much like the original silver screen Wolfman. But you know, though, as a Wolfman figure, that's not a Lycan, for example, if you aren't crazy about the way that those werewolves develop in the Underworld series. Yeah, again, I really like the look of this one a lot. They've even gone extra to go and paint the tongue. And you can see like his teeth are a different color than his eyes. Really grimy looking yellow teeth there. Really bright looking eyes. Fur on this guy is sculpted really, really nicely. As you can see, it goes right into his back. Again, you've got a very broad torso, all these rips and tears, tattered areas, and they've actually even discolored the shirt too. This doesn't look like a shirt he just pulled from the closet and put on and went out dressed up as the Wolfman. No, this is a shirt he's been wearing around in the forest, and as you can see, there's all these tears, all this dirt, all the cool looking detail that they put it onto the figure. Again, he's got these big mauling looking hands. Can you imagine shaking hands with a Wolfman with hands this big? Now again, like when it comes to the wire frame, This is basically just null and void because there's just so much material that they would have used here. This rubbery material for the majority of their body. There's so much of it. Even if there's a wire frame here, which there is, you really can't do anything with it. More again in cases like this, when you get these bigger figures, the articulation is kind of more relegated only just to the arms. So you can bring again those arms out. Kind of looks like he's, I don't know really what he's doing. It looks like he's almost working out. You can bend the elbows. And again, you can also bend the knees. You can also stretch the legs just a little bit, but mileage may vary when it comes to, again, bigger figures like this. They don't always hold the bend. In fact, the ones that hold the bend the most of the three figures, really not technically counting the mummy. I guess the mummy would be the one that bends the best. But just to look at the three figures, I think the one that actually does bend the best is probably the Phantom of the Opera. Then maybe the Invisible Man. And once again, just to bring in the other ones that we looked at from the earlier review, I certainly would encourage, if you guys did want to see my review of this Series 1, definitely check that out here on this channel. But again, we'll just kind of move these guys in just a little bit. Phantom of the Opera, Invisible Man, the Wolfman, and then I guess the trio, the ones that you would want to consider the most, you've got Dracula, Count Dracula, you got the Wolfman, Frankenstein's monster, and then again, just off to the side, let's bring these all in. I think he would never hear the end of it if I didn't put the Bride of Frankenstein along with Frankenstein's monster. And then just into the corner there, we can also put the creature from the Black Lagoon. And hey, why not? Even though it's not technically of the same size, we'll bring in also the bendable figure of the mini mummy. The mini mummy. That's a mouthful. A great looking cast of characters here from the folks over at Noble Collection Toys. Between both Series 1 and Series 2, we've actually got it. Pretty much almost all of the Universal monsters. There's one, I'm sure there's only a few that I could think of that were omitted here. But again, I really like the look of these. I would also hope at some point, considering they already have this mold, could you see where I'm almost going to be going with this? Yeah. I would like to see this set of Series 1 and Series 2 Bendyfigs from Noble Collection Toys perhaps down the road be released in a grayscale. While perhaps maybe they don't have as much the likeness of the characters from the actual films, yeah, I would definitely be open to the idea of collecting this line again in an all black and white color scheme, fitting the way, of course, the characters look in the films. So if you're in the market and would like to get your hands on the Series 2 Universal Monster Bendyfigs from the folks over at Noble Collection Toys, either the Series 2 we looked at in this wave or even the earlier review that we looked at the Series 1, in both the cases, the price point for these will be about $20 to $23. In fact, if you head on over to noblecollection.com, the site for the company that makes these, they're selling most of their figures, the Bendyfigs of the full scale, with the display stand for $19.50. If you go around to other places like Amazon or some of the other sites that sell figures and collectibles, again, they're getting a little closer to that $23 price point, but on average, you're looking about $20 to $23 for the full-scale ones that come included with the display stands. The mini mummy, though, is going to be a little bit less than that because, of course, he doesn't come included with the display stand, and his proportions are also a little bit smaller than the other three that we looked at in this review. Though at some point, I would like to still get my hands on a full-scale version of the mummy because, of course, then it's going to be consistent with the rest of the ones that I'm going to have on the shelf, both the Series 2 and the Series 1. My favorite of the Series 2, as you already know by now, is the Wolfman. Wolfman on his own isn't going to have an easy time to stand, but thank goodness they all come included with the display stand that does have a cool little film reel design to it with, of course, the name of the character featured on the front. Of the Series 1 and of the Series 2 that we looked at, my top favorites, I would say, is the Wolfman, Phantom of the Opera, and the creature from the Black Lagoon. Once again, a big thank you to the folks over at Noble Collection Toys that did provide the sample of the Series 2 Universal Monsters that we could have a look at in this video. Perhaps throwing it out to you, the viewing audience, if you don't mind me asking, of this Series 2 that we looked at in this review, which is your favorite? Let me know down below in the comments section. In fact, even between the Series 1 and Series 2, what's your top 3 Bendyfigs that Noble Collection have put out for the Universal Monsters? Do please let me know down below in the comments section. And again, if you enjoyed this video, why not hit it with a like? If you're loving the content, as creepy as it is, during this month of Spottober, then make sure if you haven't already done so that you hit the subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification. While we have wrapped up things on a mini little mummy, have we wrapped up things here in the Noble Collection Toys Universal Monster Series 2? There's definitely going to be a lot more spookerific reviews coming your way during the month of, again, Spottober. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.